Welcome back to the show, everybody. U.S. Treasurer blows my mind, and I bet he's going to blow yours too. How about a new Bretton Woods? How about somebody roll that beautiful intro?
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
XRP Las Vegas, we're 55 days away. Did you get your ticket?
XRP community, the SEC versus Ripple case is over. Now the path is clear, and the celebration at XRP Las Vegas 2025 just went 10x. And you need to be there May 30th and 31st at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Hear from White House Crypto Council members on stage, including Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Giancarlo. You'll also hear from Dr. Christopher Brummer from Blueprint. And one lucky builder developer will win a $25,000 prize for the best Web3 project idea. Go to the EZA app to register for your chance to win $25K. The excitement is building for XRP Las Vegas 2025, the world's largest XRP conference. Get your tickets now and lock in.
Boy, I'm telling you what, 55 days away. You want to meet Brad Garlinghouse in person, David Schwartz, Keith Grossman from MoonPay, Simon McLaughlin from Uphold, Nancy Beaton from Uphold, Robin O'Connell from Uphold. You want to meet Jim from Caleb and Brown? Look, the list goes on and on and on. How about Chris Giancarlo? Yeah, the Honorable Chris Giancarlo, former CFTC chairman, head of the Digital Dollar Project. Come on in. The list is growing. How about Greg Kidd, Bass Bank, first stablecoin from within a bank? Come on in. Yeah, listen, we've got so much for you. Make sure you get your ticket. Make the investment yourself, xrplasvegas.com. All right, we're going to open the conversation today to what I believe is what really is going on here. A lot of people just want to see digital assets go to the moon so they can get rich, they can get their Lambos, big watches, fancy cars, whatever, boats, I don't know. That's you do it. All I'm saying is that I want you to listen to this clip. We've covered this clip before. It might have been in the Freedom Zone, but I want to cover it now. And I want to go into the idea of what is happening right before our eyes on a much larger scale than just cryptocurrency. Let's listen to Howard Lutnick, the U.S. Secretary of Commerce, explain what gratis vendor is.
I tell him what a gratis vendor is.
Yeah.
And he's speaking to Elon Musk in this conversation just for reference here. And he's talking about having a software code gifted, basically. Did you hear that? Gifted to the government.
I designed, because I was not going to go into the government. I was doing transition.
What is a gratis vendor?
A gratis vendor is an approved vendor for the United States of America that gives product to the government, doesn't sell it.
Okay.
So therefore, I don't have to go through the whole process of becoming a proper vendor because you're giving it to us. And then if you give it to Article 2, which is the president's stuff, then the president can accept it. Right? Because it's give.
Sorry, Howard, what's an example of this? Like just to make
I write some software.
You write some software.
I write some software for the Commerce Department to do a better job of XYZ. You just give it to me. And then I do QA on it, and I can take it. If you sell it to me for $1, we go into government hell.
Right, the whole rigmarole.
Yeah. Right? But if you give it to me, right? And then I set up, so I said, I'm calling it Doge. And I registered the name Doge.
You said that.
And that's where Department of Government Efficiency came from. It wasn't from Elon Musk at all. Isn't that interesting? But what's more interesting is that a gratis vendor, as an example, is someone who gives software code to the U.S. government. Huh. Well, obviously it makes sense that Elon had his team make some software and he could gift that software to the government and the administration, and there's no hassle, no fuss, no muss, and it can be used without any question or any problem at all, because you get into the government hell, as Lutnick said, if you go the paid route. So that's what they've done. And that's what they've done with the software code and all of this stuff they're using to scan for waste, abuse, and fraud in the government system and all the respective agencies. But when I heard him say that you could gift software code as a gratis vendor, the first thing I thought of was Ripple Pilot's private ledger for central bank digital currencies. And then my first thing I thought was, I wonder if they gifted the private ledger to the U.S. government. uh, let alone we could talk about that escrow all day. But around the rest of the world, we see developments happening. Digital Euro Association says the use of cash is declining in Europe, but it does remain the most frequent used payment method in German-speaking countries. Meanwhile, awareness of central bank digital currencies is rising, with 1 in 3 Europeans saying they would use the digital euro. This is another fun fact. Ripple's partnership with the Digital Euro Association. They're running private ledgers for multiple banks. Some say 24, some say 50. Maybe it's more. I've heard numbers all over that. We know Monica Long and I can't remember the other lady's name, Michelle Bond, years ago at Ripple, said they were working with over 50 governments around the world. And that was like 2017, 2018 or something. It's crazy long time ago. What's that number now? And we know that also Ripple's partnered with the Digital Pound Foundation as well. Then we see this from Scott Melker. Ripple's Real USD hits 10 billion in cumulative trading volume. Bitcoin News I covered yesterday, saying that they're going for a big play, RLUSD. They did. Take a look. Take a look at that right there. Bitcoin.com news. I said it the other day. What do you think it took for them to put this out? I bet it was just like nauseating for Bitcoin News to put this out. RLUSD hit 250 million in market cap. The Ripple stablecoin is quickly becoming a serious player in cross-border finance. Welcome to the dance, Bitcoin.com news. We know. Moving on. David Schwartz, ladies and gentlemen. He will be on stage at XRP Las Vegas, and he will be interviewed by the one and only Vet XO, ladies and gentlemen. I am so excited to meet Vet XO. He does so much to help the community understand things on the technical side in this space, and he's so good at it. And he's certainly a wonderful person to talk to. I can't wait to meet him in person. He's going to be on stage with David Schwartz. What do you think that fireside chat's going to be like? Listen to a piece of this really quickly here.
The launch of Ripple stablecoin benefits the broader XRP Ledger ecosystem, driving more use cases and opportunities for developers.
And we know this, right? It increases liquidity for cross-border payments and DeFi on the XRP Ledger. We know it's all getting put into place. And then I highlighted the last few times, and since this came out in February, the XRP depository receipts that are made to be eligible securities that offer ownership of digital and alternative assets for settlement, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Why would XRP need to be an eligible securities offering for the DTCC to help settle 2 quadrillion every year? And because that's a securities market for clearing and settlement, they're offering a security version of XRP because it is not a security. So they don't have to change any rules in that DTCC and still have the advantage of using a new asset like XRP for settlement. And look at the liquidity pool that would create. Sounds like somebody's got big plans for XRP, doesn't it? How about a Monix right here? No, I've not seen this before. It looks older. But I tell you, this is pretty remarkable. If this is accurate, Mnemonics puts out accurate things, so I assume that it is. So shout out to Mnemonics, give them a follow. Look at this. Let me just, bank IDs, Ripple documentation. basically like a SKU number for a bank. Over 500 of them. What they got those for? Here, let me help you with it. I don't have any of those bank IDs. You know why? Because I don't have a need for them because I'm not doing business with any banks. But Ripple does. What's that mean? Where are we going? Well, here is the new U.S. Treasurer, Scott Bessent. I want you to listen to what he says, because Magoo, PhD, has got it on lock here. Buckle up, snowflakes. The fourth turning shit is here. There is a book and a writing. There's some videos you can find on the four turnings. It's pretty remarkable about macro changes in the world and the economy and all of it. And it's pretty remarkable. You should check it out. Maybe we'll even jump into it one day in the Freedom Zone. But let's listen to what Scott Bessent says here, and let's take a listen. I'm telling you, this is happening, ladies and gentlemen. Sounds futuristic. We've heard people talk about these notions for a long time. You know, like a new Bretton Woods. Well, how hard is it to believe if you hear the current U.S. Treasury Secretary say it to you?
I think as an economic historian and someone who's been in markets for 40 years, I actually think I'm starting to look like it now. I think we're also at a unique moment geopolitically, and I could see in the next few years that we are going to have some kind of a grand global economic reordering. There's something on the equivalent of a new Bretton Woods, or if you want to go back, like something back to the steel agreements or the Treaty of Versailles. There's a very good chance that we are going to have to have that over the next 4 years, and I'd like to be a part of it. I've studied this. I think it's kind of a unique skill set. I think.
Now, I don't know if it's just me, but I'm losing my mind to hear him say that. It doesn't, if I say it, whatever, right? I mean, I'm not the treasurer of the United States of America. He's there because he believes this is the moment that it happens. That's why he's there. To me, that's confirmation that it is happening. Now let's take a look at what Stuart Alderati believes is taking place. Listen to what he says. And think about what Scott Bessent just said. A new Bretton Woods. A brand new economic reordering.
And hopefully when this regulatory cloud is lifted and we get some policy clarity in the U.S., we will then be the most trusted source for enterprise support for crypto solutions in the U.S.
I mean, token.
That's right. Isn't that what we're talking about here? Or how about David Schwartz when he said this back in 2023?
Do you believe that there can be two existing world reserve currencies to simultaneously exist?
And David Schwartz will answer, we've played it before, but now, in your mind, what did the current U.S. Treasurer just say? A brand new economic reordering, a new Bretton Woods, if you will.
I do, and I think that could happen. I think it's quite realistic that a lot of the world is just done with the dollar as their reserve currency. I think that there's a lot of places that are willing to try something else. And one of my scenarios, and I don't think it's going to play out quickly, but like one of my wild case success scenarios for a digital asset is if countries start to realize that the US dollar is not going to be the reserve currency forever. Other things are going to be the reserve currency. And the same thing that we saw with banks. Like people, when we started selling software to banks, people would say to me, why would a bank use something that like you guys were selling them when they could use something that was like made by banks? And what they didn't realize is that, only like 10 banks in the country, on the planet, are Deutsche Bank, HSBC, Credit Suisse, JP Morgan Chase, like the ones who would build a system that the entire planet would run on. For the rest of the banks, that's 6,000 smaller banks, those are their biggest, strongest competitors. Those are the entities they hate the most. They would not want to use the system built and maintained by them because it's going to be biased in favor of them, their biggest and strongest competitors. And I think the same thing could happen to nations. Like every nation would love for their currency to be the world reserve currency. That's helped the US, that's grown the US economy, quote unquote, unfairly by leaps and bounds for decades. And every other country would be like, yeah, we'd like to have the world be the world's reserve currency. But the only countries that could possibly pull it off is the US holding its position, maybe the EU, maybe Russia, maybe one or two others. But realistically, most countries know that if there's going to be a new world reserve currency that's a country's currency, it's not going to be them. And so they might actually prefer a currency that nobody can control to one that's controlled by their largest geopolitical rivals. And so that's like what I think is the biggest possible success scenario for digital assets. If these countries are like, okay, well, the US dollar can't hold on forever, but it's not going to be our currency because no one's going to want to repeat the US dollar scenario. Nobody but the EU wants the EU to replace the dollar, right? Nobody but Russia wants the ruble to replace the dollar. Nobody but China wants the yuan to replace the dollar. So maybe they could settle on a currency that nobody could control rather than one controlled by their most powerful geopolitical rival. So if you want a success scenario, that's the one that I think is the most likely.
But the money question is, how do you get everybody to agree?
I've said this a long time ago. Pre-allocation of XRP is real. R3 got 5 billion pre-allocated option contract, 5 billion XRP pre-allocated option contract, for which they went to court and had to renegotiate that because R3 didn't live up to their end. Greg Kidd had an option contract, pre-allocated 1% float. He had 1 billion XRP, right? So this is getting interesting.
Well, I mean, they might agree if the alternative is that their geopolitical rivals force some new replacement for the dollar that's not, if they just replace, the old boss with a new boss. If the choice is no boss, if that happens to make a bunch of cryptocurrency people rich, I don't think they're going to see that as too much of a minus.
That's good.
I don't think they will either, because I think he makes a fantastic point, because they're the real winners at the end of the day. And they also know that most people that aren't educated about money, if they ever get any, in no time flat, they'll give it back. XRP was designed to underpin the US dollar to ensure its dominance as the world reserve currency for the next 150 years. Ripple is playing chess while everyone else is out here playing checkers on a maxi board. This isn't about chasing green candles. This is about protecting the future of our children in the largest economy of the world and the US dollar dominance. Having reserves of all kinds of different assets from all over the sector of, whether it's commodities or alike, really stabilize it. If you could underpin the dollar with all of those things, instead of just an agreement to print more or just a petrodollar agreement, then you really would have the confidence of a dollar for the next 150 years. What say you?
I agree.
Oh, that wasn't very tough.
But I mean, you really said it well. To me, it's just a risk to not take that risk. And,
Right.
And sometimes the biggest risk you take is not taking a risk at all. I said it in my election.
He's absolutely right. The biggest risk you take is not taking a risk at all. And that's the moment we're in. Or you could say it like it's old boss or a new boss. Or you could say it like Scott Bessent said. A reordering, a brand new economic reordering, or a new Bretton Woods. However you slice it, that's what I'm here for. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. It's just my digital perspectives. I'll catch all of you in the new Bretton Woods.